Benjamin Bernstein of astroshaman.com, and I'm here to bring you my interpretation of the summer solstice chart for summer 2014. If you see my eyes flick left from time to time, it'll be because I got the chart right over there and we'll be peeking at it as I give you this. And I'm kind of excited. This will be the first video in which I intercut between my image and the images of the chart that I will be including. So yay! First time for me. So anyhow, let's get started. This is the summer solstice chart for June 21, 2014 at 6:51 a.m. and 13 seconds in Washington, D.C. I'm doing it for the United States since that's where I live. And those of you who don't know, a seasonal chart, a solstice or equinox chart, gives a sense of the energy of the next 3 months as a kind of a big picture thing. Obviously the individual days have their unique energies, as I do, on my weekly forecast, but the summer solstice chart kind of gives the 3-month overview. And in this chart we have some interesting things. This will be similar to the breakdown I gave on my audio podcast, This Week in Astrology, except I may say a few things different. I'm not working from a script or anything, just from the chart. And of course in this version you will have close-ups of the images that I'm talking about. So I'm going to start with the Sun, because the Sun entry into Cancer is what determines the chart in the first place. In this chart we have a Sun-Mercury conjunction. The Sun, of course, is at 0 degrees Cancer, as it must be if it's a summer solstice chart. Mercury is at 27 degrees 43 minutes Gemini, a little over 2 degrees away. So right away we have a message that it's a great quarter for communication and learning. And especially with Mercury being retrograde, a retrograde planet is a little more interiorized. So the emphasis is perhaps even a bit more on learning and taking information in as opposed to just putting it out. So that's Sun conjunct Mercury retrograde. In the chart run for the United States for Washington, D.C., these planets end up in the 12th house. And the 12th house, the high side meanings that I ascribe to the 12th house are spiritual union activities and inspired creativity. So if you're drawn to either of those things, then the Sun and Mercury both would love to express into that realm. Now, the next things we're going to look at is aspects to the Sun, always a critical factor in a seasonal chart. The Sun, for starters, is already conjunct Mercury, which I've talked about, but it's also quintile Neptune, and that's a tight orb. In fact, I just misspoke. It's actually quintile Uranus. The orb is 1 degree 52 minutes. And Uranus is a planet that's also very strong in this chart overall because it aspects 4 out of the 5 personal planets. Uranus is quintile, the Sun and Mercury. It conjuncts the Moon and it opposes Mars. So when an outer planet hits 4 out of 5 planets by aspect that are personal, that makes it a major player in any chart. So how do you use Uranus? Well, the low side, I'll tell you up front, if you see these symptoms arising, then you'll know you need to redirect it. But the things to watch out for with the Uranus aspect is nervousness, irritability, tension, craziness, insanity, unpredictability, chaos. Those are how Uranus operates when it needs to get your attention when you weren't paying attention in the first place. But when you are paying attention, you're doing 3 things. First, you're becoming the unique person you're here to be as a human ego expressing on planet Earth. Let your freak flag fly, so to speak. The second thing I recommend with the Uranus contact is to follow your intuitive flashes. That's how Uranus communicates. That sudden knowing, the aha. The difference between an intuitive flash and just a regular old thought is that the thoughts come all day long and they have no special resonance. When the intuitive flash hits, you absolutely know it's true, no doubt about it. You might even get goosebumps or tingles up your spine or some somatic response when the intuition comes. So with Uranus strong, I would follow those intuitive flashes. Over the years I've been a professional astrologer. All my clients tell me things go better when they follow the intuitive flashes than when they don't. And I've had the same experience, so I strongly recommend that. The high side of Uranus, and the highest way, is humanitarian service. So if you can not just follow your own intuitive flashes that serve you personally, but follow the inspirations that let you help the collective, that's best yet. So with Uranus again, aspecting the Sun and 3 other personal planets as well, I would strongly give that advice during the period from summer to the beginning of fall. The Sun is also receiving another aspect. This one's from Neptune. It's a trine, which is easy automatic connection. And the orb is 7 degrees 33 minutes. So it's a loose orb, a loose trine. But still, we have that energy of Neptune, which is exactly the same as what I just said about the 12th house a moment ago. It's the energy of divine union. It's the energy of inspired creativity. So this says during this 3-month period, you might find it easier to connect with spirit and have a little more creative inspiration come your way. And we're all creative. None of us got left out. If you don't think you're creative, it's because you have just kind of not paid attention to the part of you that's always giving you those cool ideas. So I promise you, you are. So those are the main aspects that the Sun is receiving. So let's move beyond the Sun-Mercury conjunction in the 12th and look at larger patterns. There is, in fact, a grand cross in this chart. That is a geometrical square that hopefully you're viewing right now if I've done my job well on the video editing. And as you can see, the left corner of the square is the ascendant, or the beginning of the first house. The bottom is Mars. The right is the descendant and Pluto. And the top is the Moon and Uranus. So right away, we notice that the T-square I've been talking about in my forecasts, especially last week, Mars, Uranus, Pluto, is part of this picture. And that's revolutionary transformation. It's about powerful new beginnings. And so that energy of, strong, volatile shift is with us for the entire summer. So that means if there's some situation in your life that you're not really happy with how it's going, you have the energy to paradigm shift it. And Uranus will be popping down the intuitive flashes of how to do that, encouraging you to be your unique self and be authentic to who you really came here to be. The Pluto connection not only gives power, but Pluto says release everything that doesn't serve you or transform it so it does. And if you're open to surrendering to divine guidance, if you're willing to say, hey, Spirit, just run me, I'm going to just listen to your instruction and do what you say the best I can, that's to me the best way of using Pluto, because that's when you get the most power. Because Spirit knows it can be used responsibly if it's not being run by an isolated ego, but is being run by the part of you that is the divine in the first place. So I hope that made sense to you. It's certainly clear to me. So here we have Uranus, Pluto, Mars, T-square, but it's not operating alone. The Moon is in here. So let's zoom in a little bit into the 10th house, where we see that the Moon and Uranus are conjunct. And on the challenge side, this can be emotional volatility, sudden mood shifts. But on the high side, this can be your emotional receptivity, knowing when you get an intuitive flash. You just feel it in your heart when the intuitive flash hits. So that can be a fantastic way to use this. The Moon also represents home, so relocation is a possibility, possibly during this time. It doesn't say you have to, but that's one of the meanings of a Uranus-Moon conjunction potentially. Could also be paradigm shift in your family, in your relationships perhaps. So that's another way Uranus-Moon can play out. But the most consistent and the most reliable for everyone I find is just, when you feel something in your heart, you just got one of those intuitive flashes, please follow it, because that's your higher aspect that's far wiser than your intellect could ever be trying to guide you. So let's talk about the angles that are part of this grand cross. It's a virtual grand cross, and what that means in astrology is that at least one of the corners of the aspect pattern is not a physical body. It's a virtual point. And we have two virtual points in this. The ascendant, the left corner of the square, is all by itself. We also have the descendant on the right side. Pluto's there too. So we have one completely virtual corner and another corner that's partially virtual. So enough astrologies. What does it mean? Okay, the fact that the descendant, the cusp of the 7th house, has Pluto there draws a lot of the energy to that point. So this says this energy of revolutionary change is going to really fall into the field of relationships. So look carefully during the summer at who you're hanging out with. Are they moving you toward your goals? Are you hanging out with the people you want to be more like? That's the optimal way to run when you've got a Uranus-Pluto lineup and Mars too, all aspecting the descendant. You want your relationships to be moving your evolution and transformation forward. So spend less time, is my advice, with the people who are just the same old stuff. It might be comfortable, it might be fun, but if hanging out with that person or those people don't move you forward, if they're not helping you actively evolve and grow, maybe that's not where you should be spending a lot of your time. Maybe you should be focusing on spending time with the people who are helping you move forward and paradigm shift and grow and evolve. Again, the people you want to be more like. That would be my recommendation with Pluto on the descendant and Uranus and Mars and the Moon also aspecting the descendant in the summer solstice chart. Now obviously this is angle related, so this is especially applicable for those of us who live in the United States. It's the US chart I'm looking at. But you know what? It could be applied to everybody, because guess what? Mars, one of the members of the Grand Cross, is in Libra. And Libra is the sign of socializing and your friends. Libra and the 7th house have the same astrological meaning. So it actually could apply no matter where you live. And even if you live in a place where there is no Grand Cross because these guys don't aspect the ascendant, it still works because you've got a T-square with Mars in Libra. So the relationship advice, I think, would work across the board. For those of us who live in the U.S., the ascendant is very much a part of this picture, and therefore there could be revolutionary shift in anything represented by the ascendant, which is the mask or persona you show to the world. That could be the way you do your hair, your makeup, the clothes you wear, the behavior you show, your typical public behavior. This Grand Cross is encouraging you to be more authentic with that if you possibly can. So those are some thoughts on the Grand Cross. There's another aspect pattern I want to talk to as well. It is a grand trine that also forms a kite. We'll just start with the grand trine first, which is the simpler pattern. This is formed by Saturn in the 5th house, trining Chiron up in the 9th, and they both trine the ascendant, once again a virtual aspect pattern. And I've talked a lot in my forecasts over the last couple of months about the grand trine that Saturn and Chiron have made with Jupiter. Now in this particular chart, Jupiter is just about gone from that grand trine. It's almost finished. So we have the ascendant really taking pride of place as the 3rd point. But the same interpretation I've been using for the grand trine still holds here, because Chiron is the central planet in giving meaning to this aspect pattern, which is healing and mentoring. And with a grand trine where everything connects easily and automatically, this means the summertime could be a fabulous time for anything involving mentoring or healing, whether you're giving it or receiving it. And as it aspects the ascendant, the public part, this could be very visible and very open as it happens. So that's a really lovely way to use this grand trine. If we want to extend it into a kite, we have the Pluto descendant point as a kite point. Now again, this is a little bit wide on the orb. Pluto technically is slightly beyond the 5-degree orb or distance from exact that I use for a sextile, that 60-degree angle that connects Chiron and Saturn to Pluto in the kite version of this aspect pattern, which looks like a kite lying on its side. And therefore, if we add Pluto, we get the sense of, okay, as we do this healing and mentoring work, what transformation can we bring, or what transformation can we receive? What can we release in order to move this healing or mentoring forward? And how can we call upon the divine to empower it, which Pluto loves to do as well. So that to me is a flavor of how we could add that into the mix. So I've talked a little bit about what I consider the most critical things. I'm going to just glance at the chart one last time to make sure there's nothing of super critical importance. Now, of course, I'm an astrologer. I could go on for hours about this chart, but I think for the purpose of this video, I've hit what I consider to be the most important points personally. Let me just mention in terms of the U.S. itself. Now again, as a caveat, I'm not a mundane astrologer. A mundane astrologer is one who specializes in the astrology of global events and countries as opposed to just individuals. They might talk about presidents and heads of state, but not so much just regular folks like you and me. But with this chart, it does show the U.S. with that Grand Cross in place might have a volatile summer period. The Pluto on the descendant would relate to other countries, and we are certainly having to deal with some very volatile situations as I record this on the day of the summer solstice. We've got, unrest in Ukraine with Russia, messing with the border there. We've got a little crisis going on in Iraq right now, a big crisis actually. What do we do about that? What do we not do? So the ones with whom we're in significant relationship, whether we consider them friends or enemies, is very volatile and probably will remain that way through the summer based on this chart. The instability is certainly shown by the Grand Cross with Uranus, Pluto, and Mars and the ascendant. At the same time, because of the Grand Trine and Kite I talked about, the healing is available with Chiron so prominently placed. So we can bring a lot of healing to the country. One thing that comes to mind specifically is Barack Obama apparently is soon going to make an executive order saying that government contractors cannot discriminate against LGBT people, which I think is a healing and harmonizing effect from my perspective. So even as there's all this volatility, there can still be healing and movement forward with compassion as well. So those are just a touch of things in the U.S. chart. One last thing I'll say is, again, we have a Uranus-Moon conjunction up in the 10th house, and this can be in a mundane chart. The Moon can be the public. Uranus, again, can be volatility. So there could be some volatility in the American public, either events that are upsetting or opinions that are upsetting. Lord knows we've got a pretty divided electorate already. But this also could indicate sudden sea changes in public opinion. Now again, I can't predict exactly how that's going to happen concretely. One of the principles I work with as an astrologer is I can predict archetypally all day. I can say what shape the energies are in, but I can't make a concrete prediction based on that either for a person or a country. And again, I'm not advising the United States of America, so it's probably not going to take my advice. So hard to know exactly how this is going to play out, but I did want to give a sense of the overall energy picture and the kind of vibe we're in for the summer period. So I hope this has been helpful. Again, most of my energy in this interpretation has been on how you can use the chart individually. That is my focus, and a little bit on the mundane part about the U.S. as well. So I hope you have found this summer solstice chart interpretation helpful, and it has been my pleasure to present it to you. I'm going to put a link up to my website, astroshaman.com, where you can find out all more about what I do in terms of an astrologer, and I'm also a shamanic healer and an awakening activator. And I do a weekly forecast as well you might want to check out if you're interested. And that's probably enough about me for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope this information helps you have a more delightful summer season. Thanks again. I'm Benjamin Bernstein.